Welcome to Elementary. I hope you're having a fabulous Monday. Before we get started, I want to say today is voting day. And so if you haven't voted already, I would say the most important thing you can do to have your voice heard is to go out and vote. Yes, get out the vote is what we're talking about. Today we're talking about rental. So just everything rentals and market updates, tell you what's going on and so on and so forth. So we're talking about rentals in the sense that what's happening in the rental market. And there are so many different aspects to the rental market that I want to cover today because I want people to understand the full impact of what we're seeing. Yeah, and I one of the questions I get asked so often is, hey, why are rents so expensive? And, there's a couple of different things. Yes, Toronto keeps growing. The greater Toronto area keeps growing. Lots of people renting because it's too pricey to buy. People who were waiting to buy are renting. People that have immigrated into the country are renting. And so there's not enough rentals for everyone. Interest rates are also higher, maybe not as high as they were, but definitely higher than where it was in 2020, right? People are gone used to that cheap rates of interest that they were seeing in 2020. So before we get going, I want to let you know that if you have any questions, drop them in the icon below, the question icon, or the comments, and I'll try and cover any of your questions that you might have. And along with talking about rentals, we're going to try and cover a couple of questions that I'm getting quite often these days so that people, if you're thinking about it, this might be a question that's on your mind. And therefore, I'm going to try my best and cover it, okay? So there are all these different things happening and therefore rents are expensive. And even though in the last few months we've seen a little bit of incremental drop in rents because there's so many of these little condos out in the market and people are, hoping that people rent their condo. There are obviously those, the rents are coming down a little bit. But they're really not that different. Look, there's some things I'm going to say to you. If you are renting a place, if you were renting, and let's say you had really cheap rent, like $1,300-ish and below, or around that mark, then what are you doing with the remainder? Like if a small one bedroom is about $2,400, are you taking the excess money and stashing it and putting it into some sort of fund to multiply your money? Because if you're not doing that, you're really not saving anything, right? So I'm going to give you a few examples of what I'm seeing happen to people with regard to rents and what I'm noticing. And why this is a topic I decided to cover as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is I had a few people say to me, like, this is ridiculous. We've been like trying our best to get into a rental market. We can't seem to get into a rental market. And so one of the questions I ask is, why is that? Like, why are you not getting into the rental market? And it's hard to really, understand why they're not getting into the rental market because, while people make make some suggestions, one of the things I tell people is in order to get into a rental market, your income has to be decent. Your credit rating has to be good. You have to have good references where, people can call your landlord or previous areas that you've lived in and get a good reference from you. You have to be not owing any money. You have to be paying on time. All of these things make a big difference, right? But most importantly, private homes, right? Private homes are screening people quite intensely, I would say, these days. And the reason behind it is because there's so much going on in the back, right? There's so much scams everyone is facing. And so people are worried. People are worried that someone's going to get into their house and never leave. People are worried that someone's going to come into their house and never pay. And so if for some reason your numbers don't align and they don't line up with the rental, right? The landlords don't want to choose you, and rightfully they're a private business. Like, that's a home that they have they have to pay a mortgage on. And so technically, it's frustrating, right? Because I had someone tell me the other day they were having a big issue, but they didn't really clarify to me because they wanted me to help, but they didn't clarify to me what exactly the issue was. Then I had another lady come to me and say, oh, can you help me? Can you help my sister get a place? And this lady was looking to buy with me. So I'm like, well, it depends. I'll do my best. And so when I started asking the sister, I'm like, okay, do you have a job? She doesn't have a job. So I'm like, how do you expect me to go to someone and say, hey, do you want to rent her a place? She doesn't have a job, but she'll pay. But people don't understand. They think if I can just throw money at the problem, people should be able to rent me a place. So the lady says to me, well, I'll give them so many months in advance. And I said, that's not the issue though, right? Because people want to make sure after 6 months, you can still afford the place. And logically, that's not even legal to give so many months. So a lot of people, what they've been doing is they'll give you so many months in advance, and then they go to the tribunal and file something. And when the tribunal hears the case, then the landlord has to give that money back. So it really defeats the purpose of doing that piece. And people just want to be, I just want someone who comes in, takes care of my property, and pays me on time. And so with regard to all of these little moving pieces, I think what most people don't realize that there is actually a whole scam happening also with some people, which is really hard to believe. And so we as realtors have to do so much legwork to go through these properties. So one of the biggest scams that we're finding is that they have these places that will give you like fake letters, fake job letters, fake whatever, fake, I don't know what they do, but it's all this fake paperwork so that you can get a your rental application in. It's not free. You have to pay. There's no guarantees that people will, but I think, like anything else, right? You initially, when you do a fake thing, one or two might come across and people will maybe not do their homework, but really people are really doing their homework. And so when they're looking at all of this paperwork, it's very disappointing to some people when landlords are being pretty strict or stringent with the rental application and what they expect to see. So that is actually one of the big things that are out. Like people are doing like a lot of fake documents, and landlords really have to sift through them to make sure that whoever's giving them this information, that's the correct information. The other thing too is that, someone says, hey, I want to rent a place, and you can't find them on social media. I mean, we're in this day and age where everybody's on socials, right? And so if you can't find the person on social media, you look up the person, you can't find the person. I mean, you're literally a ghost. How does a person know who you say you are, right? So there's lots of scams going on. There's also scams where people will... So for example, there was one guy who took a listing that someone else had listed and was kind of like the go-between, right? So the guy had seen the listing, copied the listing. Someone came to him and said, hey, I'm interested. And then the next thing you know is he's making arrangements for an agent to show the place, but he's like acting like he's that person and sending people to the agent. But then he ends up collecting the money. It's so complicated. But, if people had so much brain power and they really put it to good use, they could make a lot of money. But they do all this underhanded, crazy stuff just to make a few bucks. Like, I don't understand how much energy you put into scamming people. And it's only like temporarily. You don't make money forever scamming people. So, some of the things that, we're facing is... landlords are facing the fact that renters are putting in fake job letters, fake paperwork, pretend bosses, pretend landlords, giving them references, the whole 9 yards. And once they move in, they stop paying rent. But on the flip side, renters are also facing a lot of challenges too, where they are really getting scammed into fake listings, giving money to people that they think that's the person. Now, if you go through an agent because you're renting a private, like a condo or a house or something to that effect. If you're working with an agent, the agent will never say to you, bring me cash. Because if the agent says, bring me cash, run in the other direction. Nobody asks for cash. Nobody asks you for cash anymore. The amount of money that we hold as deposit is held in a trust account. It's a certified check, whatever. So it's all legit stuff, right? And so those are some of the things for you to be mindful of. If you are thinking, hey, someone's saying, hey, bring cash to the meeting, you're like, why would I bring cash? Like, I have to find some way of paying you, but it can't be cash because I have to have some way of recording that I paid you as well, right? Obviously, never send money before you see a place. Use a realtor. Landlords always double check. Like for landlords, you always need to double check paperwork. And when I say double check, it's not like just looking, like really sifting through it. Gone are the days, like I know we would have scams before, but these are over the top scams. Like I don't even know where this is coming from. Like some of the paperwork that I see is pretty out, it's pretty crazy, because before everything had to be originals. You would get the original and everything would be paper, These days, everything is electronic. So we are aware that that's one issue we have to combat. But when you have these agencies, so to speak, giving you the fake credentials that you need, that becomes so much harder. So people that are actually genuine are going through the same sort of challenges. And a lot of times they are getting a little more frustrated with the process. And it's not as easy to rent. Honestly, it's not as easy to rent. I don't take on a lot of rentals. I will really vet the person before I say yes to them, just because it is very hard and extremely hard, right? To get people into a rental if they don't meet all of the criteria. So in saying that, some people are asking me, so Jacqueline, is renting good for me or bad for me? And I say to them, it really depends on what, because some people are saying to me, well, I've been renting for so many years and I keep renting because I've been hoping for the market to bottom out. And, what do you think? And so there's different aspects of where you are in your home journey. And, all I say is, the market, the interest rates, the market's the market. The interest rates are the interest rates. I would say to some people, absolutely 4% is pretty reasonable, because if you look at interest rates, the interest rates started dropping before COVID. But at COVID, it was really cheap way to, borrow money. But that's not sustainable, right? And I totally get that our housing prices are so high, and therefore it's almost impossible to really get into it. But what I say to people, if you are paying a huge amount in rental, then you're paying someone else's mortgage, right? Because what you're seeing is, that's why rents are so high, because people are getting approvals and their rents are pretty high. So they have to cover that piece with, so they have to cover that mortgage amount or close to it. And that's what you're seeing. So people are saying, well, some landlords are not cash flowing at all. Some landlords are cash flow negative. And I mean, listen, some landlords, that's their own issue. They've speculated and they are cash flow negative because they probably had to close on a brand new property, and the only way they can get some money in is by renting out some of that. So a lot of times I'll say to people is, look, the real estate market is the market, but you have to make sure that you understand what your goals are and how it's going to work for you. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you're renting, if you're living in your mom and your parents' basement and you're saving, key. I think I'm going to say it, and please don't hate me if you're this parent, okay? If you're a parent that lets your kids live for free, your kids are not in school. I cannot use my hand gestures because apparently it's pausing my video. I don't know. I didn't activate that hand gesture thing. But anyhow, if you're a parent and you don't charge your kids rent for living in your house, And I'm not saying you should charge rent and use it. All I'm saying is you should charge rent and put it in an account. So you're actually taking that rent money and stashing it for them, that when they're ready to buy a house, they'd be ready to move in. Now, nobody lives for free. This is what I say. Nobody lives for free. If you are not in school and you don't have a job, that's not your parents' problem. Go get a job. If you are in school, of course, you're living for free. But if you're not in school, you've got a job, you have to pay rent, like in the real world. Like as a parent, I think you're not teaching your kids any, I don't know, I think it's a way to teach them how to manage money, as well as how expensive things are. And that we as parents are not always going to be around for our kids, and they should learn to manage on their own. And it makes a world of difference, to be honest. So having said that, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're staying at your parents' house, you're stashing that money. And I would say it really depends on where you are. If you can get into the market, you should get into the market and hold on to a property. Don't overpay. Get someone who would be truly, truly honest with you about what things are selling for. I mean, there's so much information out there. I actually give my clients the information when they're working with me, all of this, because I want them to know what things are selling for. I want them to pay a market value or less, but never more. I want them to know what things are valued at. And I think the more information you have, my job is to break it down and make you understand the value. But I think it's important that if you're looking to buy a house or to make a move, that you have all that information and then you make a choice, an informed decision based on what you have in front of you. The other part to it is that if you're, let's say, not a first-time buyer, because that may be a little bit of a different position. Perhaps you're a first-time buyer and you really can't afford to get into the market right now, even though you may have a bit of down payment. In that case, I would say to you, continue, don't give up hope, continue to save, because at some point, you'll have enough to get into the market. You will have enough. The other thing that I get from people is that, they may be a young couple or single even, but they'll say to me, oh, I want a house, and because I don't want to pay maintenance. But even if you get a condo, it's okay. It's a good start. You can get into the market. Right now, there's so much choice to be had. On the flip side, you still have to pay maintenance. Like the condo, yeah, you have to pay maintenance. But if you own a house, you still have to maintain the house. Like it doesn't come maintenance free. It's still a maintenance, just not an upfront cost. And some of my younger clients actually that end up buying a condo with me not long ago end up saying to me, my goodness, I was hell-bent on wanting to get into a home. But now that I have a condo, I didn't realize like how long it is to shovel snow and do the grass. And I'm so glad that I have the condo and I don't have to do any of that work and I can just kind of live. So it's not for everyone, but it is for some people. Perhaps you're looking to downsize and you have a big house right now. I mean, it's a good option for you to think about something where you can just have someone else do the work for you, right? Because a lot of my older clients are struggling with making ends meet, paying for a big house, heating, cooling, all of those things still go on. The one thing I want to say is it doesn't matter where you are. If you are, you really kind of need to know exactly what your story is. You really need to know where you stand, how much money you will walk away from one place, how much money what can you afford with what you walk away, how much do you owe, what are the costs associated. Once you know all of those pieces, it'll help you kind of understand if this is even the right move for you, right? Having said that, if you're an older person or you're downsizing, if you're saying to me, hey, I can barely make ends meet, I'm paying for all this empty space, I don't need all these rooms, but I really don't want to give up my house. Yeah, you're still going to have the empty space. You're still going to be paying for all of those empty rooms. If you're saying to me, hey, by the way, my knees still hurt. I cannot make it upstairs. I had one client say to me, and she's still in her house, by the way, every time her husband falls or has a fall, she calls me and says, I think I'm ready, Jacqueline. But then she backs off and she gets cold feet. Because I get it, like you don't want to give up your independence and you want to hang on to it as much as you can. So for them, it's really hard. She says to me, she comes downstairs in the morning and she hopes she hasn't forgotten anything because she doesn't want to have to go up again. And then they stay at the main level all day long. And then it's only at bedtime do they go up. But it's pretty scary when she said that to me, because I did say to her, like, if you're having mobility issues, and you can't get down fast enough, and let's say there's an emergency or you have like a fire or something, like you really need to think of all those things, right? She's not ready and I'm not pushy, so that's the other thing, right? Listen, the way I look at it is I can only give you the information. At the end of the day, you still have to make your own decisions. And if you still want to hang on to your home and go through all of that pain, then that's your choice and you get to have your choice, right? And if you miss the market, and the market is no longer bringing in the same amount of money that you were hoping for, then you miss the market, and that's your choice. So you get to live with those decisions you make. We can just help you understand what would work best for you, what wouldn't work best for you. At the tail end of the day, it's still your decision to make. So having said all of this, when is a good time to buy? And as I said, the market is the market. The market will do what the market does best. You just have to make sure that you're not overpaying in whatever market you're working in, and that you've made the best decision. However, if you ask me, should I buy a brand new home or should I buy a resale home? I will tell you to look at a resale home, because 9 out of 10 chances the brand new home is a higher price per square foot. The way the builders work it is that they project possibly, let's say the project will be done in 2 years, what they think that market would bring in 2 years. And so this is what happens with, the condos. And this is why we've been having a problem, or we've been seeing, I should say I'm not having a problem, but we've been seeing a problem with the condos, right? Because people have projected that, oh yeah, like every year it's going up 10%, for sure it's going to go up 10 or more, right? And so as a result, the condo market, people projected the condo market to go up, and some of these people paid crazy price per square foot for the condo that they can't even afford right now. Now, I will say two things, right? So some people, that because the rates went up and they're having difficulty getting the financing, and okay, I understand that piece. You still qualified at some point. But some people, pure gambling, pure speculation. What they did was they didn't even get, they know that they were not going to qualify for that condo. They were purely banking on, selling it before it came live, right? Before it came. So they wanted, so they would get rid of the condo, make a few bucks, and they were totally banking on that piece. And so a lot of them are having to walk away from their sale. Now, when it comes to the builders have so many projects that people have walked away from. And so now we're seeing an influx of builders actually going after and filing lawsuits. Now they have 2 years to file the lawsuit, and some of them are not filing right away. Some of them are waiting a little bit before they file, but some of them are going after the buyers because these condos are just sitting vacant, and the builders are having trouble even with their financials and trying to get the money out of it, right? So there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. And now when it comes down to the smaller homes on the market, those are selling pretty well. Most homes, I would say, if you're priced right, you have a good pricing strategy, you're actually competitive in the sense that you show well. If your home looks, and I'm not saying go out and do all this renovation, but if your home doesn't show well, what's going to happen is people are going to look at something else. There's other stuff on the market. And so if you want to be competitive, you have to show well. Your pictures need to look good, because this new generation doesn't come out to view homes for fun. They look online, and if the homes don't fit their need online, they will bypass you. So if your pictures are no good, they're not coming out to see your home. If your you're overpriced, they're not coming out to see your home. If you're not, if they show up and your house doesn't look presentable, they don't even want to entertain you. And there's so much choice right now, especially in the condo market. I was showing some of my clients condos, and I literally had, I guess the agent called me a couple of times to see if my client was interested. But it was even stranger. This is the first time I wouldn't say for the first time, but really this is obviously because we have to leave a card when we go into the unit so people know that we showed up. And the homeowner called me directly, which I thought was so bizarre. And she was trying to convince me to put in an offer and that she would work with my offer and the whole 9 yards. So it was very strange. I felt really bad for her. I really did. But it was a very strange call. Anyhow, so having said that, I wanted to give you that piece of information on the rentals and what's happening with rentals and what we've been seeing. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about where the market is and, answer a few questions. Now, what I will do, maybe in the next one, I've been getting a few questions been asked to me, and I've been answering the same repeated questions. So maybe in the next live that I do next Monday, perhaps I can do some of the questions I've been getting just in case it's crossed your mind. And if you have any questions you think that people are asking you, or you have questions yourself, feel free to just drop them into my DM, and I'm happy to answer them as well. Although, if you're asking me something more specific to your property itself, it's a little hard to answer because it may be a little hard to answer. But, because I may need to know a little more information. But really, on the tail end of it, like what I'm saying to people that get in touch with me, it's like, you should know really what the market is doing, not this inflated amount. Because I think sometimes what happens is, if you tell someone, hey, this is what I think the range of your home will sell for, there's some give or take, right? Because the market could change again tomorrow.